I said on Friday, what's better than one NCAA tournament win in an afternoon? 2 NCAA tournament wins in an afternoon. Let's spin zone it. What's worse than one tournament loss in an afternoon? How about 2 NCAA tournament losses in the same afternoon? Whoop! Yeah, baby. Sick 'em Bears. The ladies go down. They lose by 4, I think was the final score. They lost by 4 to Ole Miss on their own home floor. Ole Miss doing to Baylor what Baylor did to Virginia Tech last year. And here we are. Out. No second weekend. For the second time in 3 years. The third time in 4 years. Can't sneak that one past me. Third time in 4 years that Baylor basketball, women's basketball, is out in the first weekend. That's not acceptable at this program. I'm sorry. That's not acceptable. And when you take the 2 teams combined, the men's and the women's team, out of the last, again, 4 years, so 8 opportunities to make it to the Sweet 16, they've done it 1 time. And once again, what we've been saying about this women's team the last couple weeks, with their 2 losses in Big 12 championship games, rears its ugly head. When push came to shove, the other team was smarter and tougher than them. They executed better. They made more shots. They made the right plays. It happens again. I think we have to seriously question how this team handles crunch time situations, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the next segment too. But you look at what this team had coming into the season. There weren't a lot of flaws on last year's team, right? They had battled some injuries and some things. There weren't many flaws, though, on the roster. And in theory, you got better in the offseason. You added the best post player in the transfer portal, Nicki Collen. You added an all-SEC player in the middle of the season, and Alima Tharu. And it doesn't get you to the Sweet 16? Give me a break with that. And it felt like Sisyphus, man. We could feel it start to roll down the hill once this game got close, and Ole Miss, I almost called the Mississippi State, Ole Miss turns it around. They have a 6-point lead, and Baylor gets back in the game, but it's like now it's crunch time. And Baylor doesn't win in crunch time. They've shown us that time and time and time again. Sarah Andrews had a really good game in what's going to be her last game in a Baylor uniform with 14 points and 6 assists. And she made a layup to make it 61-61 late in the game, but there was a big play with 3 minutes left that I thought was totally emblematic of what this team does in crunch time situations. Ole Miss was leading by 2, 57-55, 2:56 remaining in the game. Shot clock is winding down. Sarah Andrews has the ball in her hands, and she has a wide open lane to the basket. Wide open layup. Smokes it. Smokes it so bad it hits the backboard and not the rim. So Baylor, after getting an offensive rebound, on review, gets a shot clock violation because they couldn't hit the rim on a layup. That is perfectly emblematic of how this team handles crunch time situations. And it felt like they fell apart in the second half. Ole Miss was obviously keeping pace, had some leads in the first half, and then the Bears kind of clamped it down second quarter. Held Ole Miss to 6 points, had this run going into the half. They had the lead. It was like, okay, just keep doing that. Just keep bringing that intensity, and we're good. Narrator says, but they were not good. They lose the third quarter by 3. They lose the fourth quarter by 6. They only score 15 in the fourth quarter, and bang, they're done. They're out. And it's a dog day afternoon for Baylor basketball across the board. Nicki Collen, 16 points, but only 5 rebounds. 5 rebounds from your tallest player. Bella Fauntleroy, again, another tough shooting night. I guess I don't know if that shoulder ever really healed there because it was back-to-back horrible shooting performances. She did, she was all over the place. She had the 9 rebounds. Yaya Felder, a tough day at the office, man. 0 for 2 from 3, 1 of 4 from the floor, fouled out after missing that 3 that they set up in a timeout in the last minute. That essentially became their last chance because then they had to foul after that. This was, I think, a disappointing season for the women's team. It was disappointing in the non-conference, and then they turned it around. And then they had that winning streak, and you're like, this team should win the Big 12 here. And it all falls apart when you have a chance to win the conference regular season title on your home floor. All you've got to do is beat TCU. Very good team, but so were you. At least that's what we thought. They lose that. They lose the Big 12 championship, tournament championship game, and then they lose round 2 on their home floor. So you look at, 3 of those last 4 years losing in the second round. 2 of them were at home. 2 of them were in Waco, where I don't think Kim Mulkey ever lost a tournament game. It was unfathomable to think about Baylor losing a tournament game at home in the first 2 rounds. It didn't happen. And in 22, they lost to a 10 seed. And now this year they lose to a lower seed, albeit a 5, but they lost. Yeah. Aliyah Matharu today, by the way, didn't register on the score sheet. So how about that for an impact transfer? I don't know if this team just wasn't fully going to have it after Jana Van Geitenbeek went down, after she went down in game 1 of the season. But these are 2 teams you look at in very different scopes, the men's team and the women's team for Baylor, but both of them did not live up to expectations. The women's team hurts more because they were living up to those expectations 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. They were knocking off Kansas State. They had to win, I think it was 9 games in a row, 8 or 9 games in a row to set up that date with TCU with the Big 12 championship on the line. And much like a game itself, once they got to crunch time, everything was going well. And then they lost the 3 games that really mattered in their season. This team should have been a shoo-in for the Sweet 16. It should have been. And they overcome a hurdle in round 1 where you face a 13 seed that was way underseeded, that had won 30 straight games. You overcome that hurdle only to fall at the next one. Disappointing is the word of the year for both basketball programs at Baylor. And I don't think there's any way to beat around the bush for that. But I think we need to start asking the question of when is this women's basketball program going to win the big one again? And I ain't even talking about Final Fours. I'm not talking about national championships. I'm just talking about winning the big games in front of you. The conference championship games, the round of 32 games on your home floor. Because we're not in the business of Baylor women's basketball is not in the business of talking about Final Fours or national championships anymore. They've got to be back in the business of making the Sweet 16, winning your home tournament games, winning this conference, which is wide open and will be wide open again next year. Those are the questions you need to start asking of them. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Was this season a disappointment for you? Let me know in the comments section below. Be sure to like and subscribe. We're here, obviously, every weekday on YouTube, and then wherever you get your podcast, bringing you nothing but Baylor sports content at least 5 days a week. And it's probably not going to be as much weekend content anymore since both basketball seasons are over.